Merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. I'm here tonight talking about the root chakra and the idea of grounding, which is one of the intentions that really goes well with the root chakra. So if you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments and I'll answer those at the end. We're just going to dive right in, and today I'm actually going to start by talking about the chakra system as a whole, and then we'll get into the root chakra. And then in subsequent episodes, we'll go through the entire chakra system one by one. So first of all, I just wanted to start a moment and talk about the pronunciation of the word. So we pronounce it in the United States, in many places in the West. We'll often pronounce it as, I can't even say it the wrong way anymore, as chakras, with a sh sound like this, but it's actually a hard ch sound to correctly pronounce it. So there is a letter in Sanskrit that is it's actually spelled C-A-C-K-R-A, but the C in the beginning has a dot underneath it. It's a different letter that we don't have in English, and it presumes a hard CH sound. So if you hear me pronouncing it chakra, I'm just letting you know I learned this from my teachers. This is the correct pronunciation. But that doesn't mean that you have to change the way you've been saying it either. So the word chakra itself comes from Sanskrit. It means wheel. In fact, it translates to wheel of light. And there are 7 major chakras as well as a plethora of minor ones. We're going to be talking mostly about the major ones because these are where we do the majority of our energetic work. But when it seems relevant, I'll also refer to some of the minor ones as well. So the chakra system itself is contained within the energetic body, which is called the pranamaya kosha. And each of the centers of these energetic centers, which form the 7 major chakras, they connect to the various plexuses of the body. Now, a plexus is a place where there's a bundle of nerves or blood vessels or hormone receptors that then connect and communicate chemically with the rest of the body. So if you hear anyone say that there's no evidence of the chakra system within the physical body, well, in some ways that's true. Do we really need to measure energy in the body from our Western medical standpoint? But it's also kind of untrue because there are connections between the physical system and the energetic system, and we see that within the plexuses. So each chakra actually connects to one of these major plexuses in the body. This suggests that there's a mechanism for how the physical body communicates with the energetic body, and that is how the chakra system works. So there is this kind of constant communication, and the physical body itself, which is called the Panchamaya Kosha, connects to the energetic body, the Pranamaya Kosha. And we're going to talk a little bit about that word prana later, and you're going to see why it's really important. It kind of even gives us a hint as to how we would work with the chakra system. We're working with our prana or the life energy or in fact, the breath in our own bodies. But for a moment, I wanted to talk a bit about open versus closed chakras. So I'll hear a lot of people say this chakra that I have is closed, or this one's open, or this one's blocked. And I just wanted to speak a bit about these words and how we use them. And there's a bit of there's a little bit misleading in our dialogue when we hear people say it's closed or it's open, or we hear other teachers saying that. There's nothing wrong with the way we're using these words, as long as we kind of understand what that means. So really, when people say that the center is closed, it usually means that it has restricted energy through it. But these energy centers themselves, they can't get fully closed. So when people say my chakra is open, they usually mean it's more balanced and it has the optimal energy flowing through it. But on the flip side of that, we can also actually have it be too open. And when we get into the root chakra, we're going to talk more about that. What happens when something is, too open versus too closed, or we have an excessive amount of energy versus a restrictive amount of energy. So I think, and I've said this before, it's a really useful analogy to think of like a stream of water. So if we think of the chakra system as a stream, And in fact, the word nadi, which is the Sanskrit word for the energy lines or energy pathways in the body, that actually means water or stream. And so if we think of this analogy, if we were to throw rocks into a stream, well, unless we have big boulders and we're damming up the stream, we're still going to have water flowing through it, but it's going to flow through a different pathway. So when our chakras get blockages, we don't mean that it's totally closed. We mean that there are these kind of dark areas perhaps in them, or places where the energy just isn't flowing optimally. So just think of those rocks in a stream, and those are the things we want to remove when we're trying to balance the chakra system. So our goal here at the end of all of this is to have all of the centers really, really open enough so that the energy is flowing through each and every one of them. And this can be achieved through balancing all of the centers and listening to the body. So listening to the body is one of the key things here, because most of the time, and many of us, especially those of us who are on more of a spiritual path and we spend a lot of time studying spiritual things, we're really a lot of times living from the neck up. We're up here in the head, we're up in the upper energy centers, and we assume that everything below is balanced or it's working properly, but we can't just assume that. We can't work on one area to the detriment of the others. And true balance is when we're working with all of them. So the real balance, the real true imbalance is happening with that disproportionate amount of energy that we spend in one area or another. And you see this through all aspects of your life, right? If you put in too much work and not enough rest, there's a disproportionate amount of our physical energy being sent to one place. So the same thing happens with our energy centers. So during having body awareness, it's really about listening to the body, listening to where your pain is, where your discomfort is, and using that as a key to where you need to focus your attention within the energetic system. Because remember, those two systems, the physical system and the energetic system, they're really married to each other. So this doesn't negate physical causes of pain. So I'm not saying that at all, but it does suggest that the systems, you can help create healing in the physical body through working with the energetic body. So here's like an example of it. If you have, this has happened to me recently, I noticed that I was having some hoarseness in my voice. Now, hoarseness in the voice has a physical mechanism behind it, right? A physical cause. So it could be the sign of an illness coming. For me, that's not what it was. Or it could be a sign of maybe talking too much. Maybe the air quality is not good. There is something that's going to cause that hoarseness in the voice. But there is also an energetic cause. And so we can treat the physical part, but we could also treat the energetic part. So when I started to notice that hoarseness in my voice, I thought to myself that it's time to work on the throat chakra. So it doesn't mean, though, if that then progressed into some illness, I wouldn't go to the doctor. I would, but I could maybe I could even subvert that by first working in the energetic body. So another example would be, the racing heartbeat can have many types of physical causes, but it also is an indication that something's going on with the heart chakra. So just like the low back pain, sciatica, things like that, they have a physical cause, but they also suggest that there's something going on with either the root chakra or the sacral chakra. So developing this body awareness is really key, because it allows us to be almost like our own, I don't want to say doctor, but it allows us to kind of get in there and figure out what we think is going on with our own energy systems, because we ourselves are far greater healers than we understand. And we know ourselves better too, because we're the ones that live inside this body, in this panchamaya kosha. So Carl Jung, he said that the chakras were the gateways to consciousness. So he really thought that this was a way that you could connect to your unconscious, to your collective unconscious. And in my opinion, I believe that witches, empaths, spiritual people of any kind, everybody really needs to have some kind of a daily or almost daily energetic practice. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be the chakra system. The chakra system is one energetic system among many, But this is the one particular one that I've studied, and I think it works so well with the witchcraft path because of the elemental connections to it. So if you've been a witch for a long time, or even if you're getting, just starting out, I'm sure that you've come across working with the elements and that idea of how witches work with elements to kind of create change and manifest it outside of us. And there is that same idea in the chakra system. So that's why the chakra system is such a great energetic system for witches to work with in particular, and empaths, other spiritual people. So there are two ways that we can work with the system. One is working with the full system, and I really think this should be done at all times. Like, we should always be working and checking to see if there are imbalances within the system. So what I mean by this is, even if you feel that your heart chakra is the place where you need to work, maybe you have shoulder pain and arm pain and things like that, we always need to be checking in. So every once in a while we want to go back and do some root chakra practices or some solar plexus chakra practices. So this is working on the system as a whole. And then inside of that, we can work with the individual energy centers. So for me, like I said, with the throat chakra, that hoarseness in my voice showed me that this is a chakra that's getting imbalanced, and it's one that I need to pay attention to. Now, if I didn't pay attention to it, it could spiral into something worse, maybe even manifest down into the physical body. And in fact, there, at least within the yogic pathway, the Ayurvedic trainings, everything like that, we talk about how the illness actually manifests in the energetic body first before it descends down into the physical body. This is why working with the energetic body is so good, because it shows you a place where if you don't take care of it, something could get worse. So you never want to not listen to kind of those little inklings about something not being quite right in the physical body. You always want to listen to that and then see if there's some kind of practices you could bring in for a specific chakra that will help alleviate that. So general methods of working with the chakra system in general, and then I'm going to jump into the root chakra, but these general practices are pranayama. So pranayama is, simply put, breath work. It's moving prana or energy through the body. So remember, I talked about how the energetic body is actually called the pranamaya kosha. This hints at the way that we can move energy through the body, and the way that we can heal the chakra system and balance it is through the breath. That's just one way, but it's a big way. So working with our breath, working with mantra. So there are certain mantras and seed sounds, which I'll get to a little bit when we get into the root chakra, that will actually balance the energies within the body if we produce the correct sounds. Kriyas, which are repetitive movements, and they can help balance the system. Just simple, pure living. So like trying to eat well, trying to sleep well, have balance within the physical environment, being active but not too active, trying to get rid of chemicals. There's millions of chemicals we're exposed to a day, trying to eliminate our chemical load. So all of these kind of pure and simple ways of living can also help us balance the system. And then there's something called the Guru's Grace, which is just simply surrendering to the universe and to the process. And when we kind of surrender and we trust, it helps balance the system just naturally. All right, so jumping into the root chakra. The root chakra is called Muladhara, and it translates to root support. It tells us a lot just in that translation about what it has to do with. So this is located at the base of the spine, so around the perineum. And then remember I talked about those plexuses, which were those nerve bundles, and there's at least one that connects to each chakra. So this one is the coccygeal plexus. It's down near the coccyx, and the lower lumbar vertebra. So these are basically the physical locations where the root chakra is. Now, the root chakra, I don't ever want to say that one energetic center is more important than others, but if we were ranking them, I might say this one's slightly more important than the others, only because it's the basis of the system. So what happens is if we don't balance the root and we start working with the centers above it, which is very common in people who come to a spiritual path. We want to work with the third eye. We want to work with the crown and the throat and the spiritual centers. But if we start working on those and we don't balance down below, what we end up doing is having a growth that is rootless. And we don't want that at all. So the root chakra, it relates to the physical body, to the health of the physical body, to our survival, our basic needs. And I'll talk about this as we go through the other chakras, but if you have ever studied psychology, you may have come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a pyramid that kind of shows the basic needs that all humans have and how they develop through our development from childhood to adult and beyond into older adulthood. So at the very base of the pyramid, we have the basic needs like our physical safety and security and our health. And the thing is that if we don't have those needs met, it becomes hard or almost impossible to work at the higher levels. For example, love and belonging comes up on layer 3 of the pyramid. So it's hard to work with that if we don't have that base foundation and we don't feel stable and secure in our lives. It's hard for us to work on our self-esteem and our self-actualization, which is at the very top of the pyramid, if again we don't have that foundation built. And that's what the root chakra is all about. So Muladhara is visualized as a deep, deep red color. So if you want to bring in a root chakra energy into your life, immediately just surround yourself with red. Eat red, red stones. I'll talk about some of the correspondences at the end. But the red color itself is the longest wavelength and it has the slowest rate of vibration. So I've always found this kind of interesting because we think of the color red as being very activating. So they say paint your room red if you want energy, right? But that color red is actually has the lowest amount of energy of any of the colors in the visible spectrum. And it makes a lot of sense that red then is connected to the root, which is the most dense of all 7 of the energy centers. So this is the first chakra that develops. So it starts developing in the womb, and it's pretty much fully developed by about age 1 year old, so 12 months. It's kind of operational. And it doesn't mean that we stop working with it, but it's come online and it's fully aware. And it's also the first chakra to leave as a person is nearing death. So if you've been around someone who's died and has died over some time, or the death took some time, you will notice that they become very ethereal near the end. And so this is the first energy center that kind of leaves the body, and we're just spirit at that point as it leaves. So the symbol of the root chakra is the 4-petaled lotus. So I was going to hold that up there. And so this 4-petaled lotus, each of the chakras has a different amount of petals. So this one has 4, and notice how it has the square in the middle like this. So this is representative of the 4 elements and the 4 directions. So again, you can see why this is so connected to, or it works so well with the witchcraft that we practice with our elements as well. And so basically, one way to work with any of the chakras is to meditate on the symbol that represents them. And so this is this one. Now, the root is the resting place of kundalini energy. Kundalini energy is in itself a whole episode that I will get to eventually. But briefly, kundalini energy is the serpent energy in the body, and it is wrapped around the root chakra like a snake coiled there asleep. This is the Shakti energy. It is the divine feminine energy within us, and it seeks to meet the divine masculine energy outside of us, the Shiva energy. So during a spontaneous kundalini awakening, the energy at the base of the spine basically bursts forth, the snake unwinds, and the energy travels up and shoots up through the Sushumna Nadi, which is the central energy channel, and out through the crown. out into the universe. So people who have had these kinds of experiences will tell you that it feels as though you have lost your body. You are pure consciousness. It's a connection with the outside universe in a way that we can't really experience within the body. It's very temporary. It only lasts for a few seconds when you have them usually. But the key to having these experiences is working with the chakras, and it all starts there at the root, because the root is where that kundalini energy sleeps. So as I said, that's a whole other episode, and if you're interested in it, I will definitely get into it, because it's a great experience to have, and it's possible for most people to have it just simply through working with the chakras. Now, getting back to root chakra, the survival is of ourselves is the key component of root chakra, chakra 1. Now, fear is its challenge. So if survival and security is the goal, fear is the challenge. And so our fears show us the key to healing at this energy center. So if we are willing to face our fears, then this will help us work at this level. So very few people truly have zero fears. Sometimes people say, I have absolutely none. Few people have zero, because fear is it's a physiological response that is necessary for the survival of our species and us individually. But we also have fears that are not actually founded in reality, and these are what we really need to face. So facing our fears will help us become more balanced here, and we also need to make sure that our needs are met as well. So this is what you really want to ask yourself is, how secure do you feel? How comfortable do you feel in your dwelling space? So if you're in a space where you don't really feel safe, this is going to compromise the root chakra. Another thing that really will compromise it is disordered eating. It doesn't have to be a full-blown eating disorder, but disordered eating that's so prevalent in our culture will really impact the root chakra. So one way to work with the root chakra and make sure it's balanced and optimally working is to eat a healthy diet and eat at regular intervals. So other things that will impact it are having a lot of health problems. So as I mentioned before, the root chakra is the first chakra that develops, and so a lot of the things that are going to impact it will occur before we're even aware that we have a chakra system, which is unfair. It's kind of like with shadow work. A lot of the stuff that impacts our shadow is stuff that happened before we were even aware that there was such a thing as the shadow. But that doesn't mean we can't go back and, as an adult, work on some of this stuff. So health problems in general, especially health problems as like an infant or a young baby, will impact the center. Financial security issues. So like I said, if you don't feel safe, you don't know where the rent is coming from, all of this is going to impact it, right? So it doesn't mean that if you have these things going on, you can't heal at this center. It just means this is a center that you really want to work with, you want to focus on. So like I said, perhaps not knowing where the money for the rent is coming from, paychecks, not knowing when the paycheck is coming, or worries about money in general. So perhaps you have enough, but you worry about it. That's a sign too that there's some imbalances in the center. Issues with this chakra can also involve our right to be here and our right to take up space. So you want to ask yourself, do I truly believe that I deserve to be here? Do I truly want to be here? These are questions to ask. And do you have trouble taking up space? So a lot of us do. And so one indication that someone has some root chakra issues is just watching the way that they hold their body. So if you find that you are crossing your arms a lot, folding in on yourself, hunched over, this is an indication that the root is not probably optimally functioning. So we want to be comfortable taking up space and kind of and if it's hard, so I know for myself, I grew up or developed an eating disorder at a very, very young age and spent most of my life in it. And so for myself, I didn't want to take up a lot of space because I wanted to be smaller. So I notice sometimes that I'll kind of revert back to those ways of being closed off. And so if you see that in yourself, that own body language in yourself, challenge yourself to open up a little bit more, and that in itself will help balance the center. People who have abandonment issues also may have imbalances, will have imbalances here. Now, psychologically, as I mentioned, the development of the root happens from somewhere in the womb up till about 12 months of age, and this corresponds to Erik Erikson's developmental stage of trust versus mistrust. So this is where the child at an early age is learning who to trust. Can you trust the world? Can the child have faith in what's there and believe that their environment will provide for them and that their caregivers will provide for them? So if this does not take place, or the child feels as though their needs are not being met, then fear will develop that the basic needs won't be met. And this is a sure way to have some imbalances in the root. So other things that can cause imbalances here, birth trauma. So if you know that your birth was especially traumatic, then you may have issues here. Lack of physical touch early on in your development, so when you were an infant. Feeding difficulties as an infant, these would all be indications of future root chakra imbalances. Physical abuse at any time during the life, especially during those early years. Surgeries, because they are invasive of the physical body. Severe illnesses, especially in childhood, and any accidents. So any of this can cause some issues in the root chakra. So if you have a history of any of these things, just be aware that this is one of the centers that you are going to want to work with. Now, as I mentioned before, highly spiritual people also tend to have imbalances here, often not aware of it. And because we are so dominated by these upper chakras, we want to learn how to master a downward flow of our energy, not just an upward flow. Okay? So that can definitely help. Now, remember in the beginning when I was talking about chakras in general, I said that they're not really open or closed. It's more like they're deficient, or they have constrictive energy, or they're too open, in which case they're going to have too much expansive energy. So signs that you have a deficient root chakra would be, like I said, looking at the body, seeing how you hold yourself. That can be an indication. So crossed legs, hunched over, arms crossed, things like that. Poor boundaries. If you have trouble setting boundaries, that can be an indication of deficiency in the root. Disorganization, anxiety is often going to be a sign of some root issues, because remember, the challenge here is fear, and anxiety is a long-term, basically, fear of something not being met or something bad happening, and it's not generally based in reality. Restless energy tends to be a sign of some kind of a constriction here. The need to shift the body a lot, like if you have to change your position a lot, it's more often than most people. Poor circulation, this could be a sign of an imbalance in the root. And what is really great is if you feel that you have any of these things and you think that maybe you have a restrictive energy here, which means that you don't have enough root chakra energy, then you can work with grounding, and that will help bring down the system. And when we talked about that downward flow of energy, we want to bring it down into the root. So grounding exercises are really, really good. And at the very end, I'm going to talk about some specific exercises you can do, but grounding exercises are all very good. Now, on the other hand, there can be an excess of energy in this energy center. And this is going to look quite a bit different, but it's still going to indicate that you want to work with the root. So sluggish energy, being overly tired for no reason that you can find, excessive weight in the lower part of the body, so the butt, the thighs, if you just feel like you're carrying a lot there, hoarding, rigid boundaries, all of these could be an indication that there is too much energy in the root, and in which case, to balance that out, we want to move more. So this type of root chakra imbalance is going to respond to movement of some kind. Now, when your root is balanced, you're going to feel solidly grounded. There's going to be a lot of bodily comfort, feeling okay in the body, healthy distribution of your energy. So you're tired when you should be tired, but you have energy when you should have energy. And there's also this ease with both that expansion and that contraction of energy. Being in pretty good health is an indication that the root is optimally functioning, and trusting in the world and the universe to provide for you, feeling safe and secure, and then the ability to relax fully, and the idea that prosperity, feeling kind of prosperous, and it doesn't necessarily have to equate to just money, but feeling as though you have prosperous energy around you that you can trust. So these would all be signs that there's a balance in the root. Now, correspondences of the root, I've already gone through a few of these, but the element that is connected to the root chakra is earth, and the function of the chakra is survival and grounding. The body parts that are connected to the root are every chakra has a gland that's attached to it or connected to it, and this is the adrenals. And the rest of the body that's connected to the root is the legs and the feet, the knees, and the large intestine, the bones. So if you have any issues in any of these body parts, then again, that would be an indication that the root is a place you want to work. Other malfunctions, so I had talked a bit about an eating disorder or a history of an eating disorder. It's always a sign that the root should probably be worked with. Hemorrhoids, so these are some more physical signs. Constipation, that is an indication that energy is not moving, it's kind of sluggish. Sciatica, knee problems, as I mentioned the knees before, and then degenerative arthritis. So these would all again be signs. If you have any of these things, it would be signs that the root is one of the centers that you want to focus on. The color is red, as I mentioned. The tarot suit is the pentacles. That makes a lot of sense since the pentacles are connected to the earth element. The planet connected to the root is Earth, also Saturn. Foods that are connected to the root chakra are protein and meats and anything that's red. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to balance the root, one simple thing to do is eat red things, berries, cherries, molasses actually is good for it too. The incense, there's a bunch of different incenses you can use, but one that's really good for the root is cedar. And stones would be anything red, or lodestones are really good, but anything red like ruby, garnet, bloodstone, those would be all good choices for working with the root. Now, for every chakra, there's a set of deities that connect to it, and usually they're kind of divided into the Hindu deities and the non-Hindu deities. And the only reason this is done is because, remember, the chakra system itself is thousands of years old, and it comes from that system in India to begin with. So some of the deities, the Hindu deities that are connected to the root are Brahma. He's one of the main three, Ganesha and Lakshmi. And in fact, Ganesha is said to be the ruler of the root. So if you want to work with your root, you can work with him. He's said to actually exist in the root chakra of all people. Now, other pantheons that have deities that are connected to the root chakra, these would be a lot of like the earth goddesses and the mother goddesses. So Gaia, Demeter and Persephone, as well as Ceres and Proserpine, Ereshkigal, any of those deities that kind of go down into the earth and come back. Caradwin would be connected to the root. Pachamama, Dumuzi, Tammuz, Atlas, but mainly gods and goddesses that are more connected to the earth element. Now, the basic issues here With the root are our body, our foundation, survival, our roots, grounding. These are like key words, intentions you could work with. Nourishment, trust, health, home, family, and prosperity. Okay, so I am going to end here by giving you a few practices that you could use to work with the root chakra energy. So the first one is the grounding exercises of any kind. I especially love the grounding tree meditation. So if you've never done the grounding tree meditation, I know a lot of you probably have, but it's very simple, and you focus on bringing your roots down out of your body and down into the earth and somehow connecting with the earth. So sometimes the roots go all the way down to the center of the earth in some versions. I have a version where I like to connect the roots to the roots of a tree. So perhaps a beloved tree that you know, and then connect your roots to those roots in your meditation and begin breathing in and out with the tree. And it's a really, really great way to ground. If you've never done it before, I'll be posting a yoga practice tomorrow that's all about the root chakra, and we're going to get into that, a little bit of that meditation there. And there's going to be a longer version of it this Friday at our Maybon gratitude ritual with Pachamama, which I'll talk about at the end, and everybody's invited to that. So we'll get a nice taste of that grounding tree meditation in that ritual. Other exercises, yoga, there is always a whole set of yoga practices that are good for all the chakras, and there are different ones for each one. So the idea here is that yoga itself helps us build and develop a better body awareness, and that body awareness is key to listening to the body and then figuring out where your own imbalances are. So the practices that are particularly associated with the root chakra are Tadasana. That's the mountain pose where you're standing and you can actually do the grounding tree meditation while in that pose. That's what we're going to do in the yoga practice that's posting tomorrow. Utkatasana is the chair pose. Vrksasana, the tree pose. Any balancing poses are really great for the root. Apanasana, this is one of the best ones. So this is laying flat on the back, and then you bring the knees to the chest. It's often called knees to chest pose. So remember earlier we were saying a lot of us more spiritual people, we're up here elevated in the upper chakras, and we need to work on bringing our energy down through the system, not just up. And Apanasana encourages a downward flow of energy. And in fact, people say it's so good at bringing energy down that if you have like gas pains or indigestion, you can use this to kind of ease some of that gas in the system. It's just a really all-around great pose. So it's just laying on the back and then bringing the knees up to the chest. And then there's Malasana, the yogic squat, and Balasana, child pose, is great because it connects the third eye as well down to the earth. So all these poses, actually the majority of them are going to be in this yoga practice too that's going to post. So another thing you can do to work with the root chakra, to work with any chakras, is to work with its seed sound. A seed sound or a bija mantra is a one-syllable sound generally, and because it's a Sanskrit sound, Sanskrit is a vibrational language. So unlike English, where there's meaning in the words, in Sanskrit there's meaning in the words, but there's also a vibrational change that happens when we utter them or when we say or when we hear them. And so you can actually make these sounds and it will immediately affect the energy in the body. It's just it's a wonderful, wonderful experience, and such a great practice to have. So each chakra, each deity, different intentions, they all have these seed sounds that you can use to draw that energy in. For the root chakra, that sound is lum. So it's spelled L-A-M, but it's pronounced lum. Okay, so you just intone that, usually kind of low in the body, like lum. So if you do that for a minute or so, and you just kind of keep intoning that sound, once you run out of breath, you just start it over. Do that for about a minute, up to 3 minutes, and that will help balance the root. It's such a simple way to do it. Other things you can do is stamp the feet. So remember, the feet and the legs are connected to the root. So kicking, kickboxing, jumping up and down, hiking, anything that's involving the legs is really good for the root. Massage is really good for the root because remember, the root is connected to the body. So really getting energy moving through the body is great. If you've never tried Abhyanga massage, it is actually a self-massage, a practice that you can do for yourself. And I will probably address it in a future episode, but look it up if you're interested. And it's a really, really great practice. It's good for the root chakra. Eating is good for the root, especially red foods, like I mentioned. And working with, like psychologically, working with and analyzing your earliest childhood memories, especially those that have the relationship to your mother or to your earliest caregiver, and kind of analyzing those. So if you are in therapy, kind of maybe bring those up with a therapist that you want to talk about them and try to analyze some of them. And that can help with the root, because remember, the root develops so early in our lives. And then just having some daily affirmations. If you're not into them, it's okay. But if you like affirmations, things like this: it's safe for me to be here. The earth supports me and meets me where I am. I love my body and I trust its wisdom. I'm immersed in abundance, and I am here and I am real. So these are just some examples. You can write your own, because now that you've gone through this, listen to this episode, you know all of the intentions of this chakra, so you can actually write your own. And you can say them, or you can post them places where you can hear, or engrave them in candles, different things like that. So I do want to talk, before I end, about the connection between the root chakra and the third eye. I've mentioned this before, but there is a great connection between these two energy centers. So remember, us spiritual people, we love being up here in the upper chakras, but we have to remind ourselves to bring that energy down. And here's why. Because there are three main energy channels in the body, nadis. There is the sushumna that moves right up through the center. It goes against the spine. That's approximately where it is. And it is actually where the 7 main chakras are located. And then we have a feminine and a masculine channel as well. These are called the Ida and the Pingala. Now all three of the channels, the Shumna, Ida, and Pingala, all meet at the root. And then from there, the Ida and the Pingala, they begin to weave in and out around the Sushumna, but they never touch. They're just weaving in and out. And then they touch one other place. So they start at the root where they're touching, and then they touch again at the third eye. And this here shows us how the third eye and the root are connected. So if we want to work with our intuition, well, we better start first down with the root. And so this is why a lot of people will start with some kind of grounding root meditation when they're going to go in and they're going to work, with these higher energy centers. All right, so I'm going to see if there's any questions left here. So I hope you've enjoyed all that. This one's a little bit longer than some of the others will be, because I started by giving that overview of the whole chakra system. Next week, we're just going to dive into the sacral chakra right away. But I did want to end here by talking about our Maybon ritual. So this is a gratitude for the Mother Earth ritual. And we're going to be doing this Friday, September 30th. It's at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And everyone is invited. So in the group, there is an invite that's pinned all the way to the top. And you can go there, and the Zoom link is there. It tells you what to bring to the ritual. It's some simple things to gather. And it gives you all the information. It gives you the Zoom link. So you can use that Zoom link right at the time and come into our virtual ritual space. So this is a ritual that is co-hosted with Coven of Midnight's Flame. This is my coven. So our maiden, Beth, she's going to be joining me. She's going to be calling in Pachamama with us. It's a really beautiful ritual. We're going to be working with the energy of gratitude, and then we're going to be doing a meditation into the earth to meet Pachamama and work with her, and just kind of sending out loving kindness and energy out to heal the earth, and just feeling gratitude in general. So I really hope you'll join us. It's just a very beautiful ritual. Maybon is the witch's Thanksgiving, so it's the perfect time for us to give gratitude, especially before we start to descend down into the darker half of the year. Samhain's approaching in 6 weeks, and we have all that internal work to do, and honoring our ancestors and different things like that. But it's really important for us to pause here, especially in this transition time and fall equinox, when the earth is changing, and just give our gratitude back to the earth. So I really hope you'll join me. If you are watching this video on the page, the Zoom ritual will actually stream live to the page, so you've got a couple places where you can see it. And if you can't come live and you can't see either one live, we'll be posting the recording and the replay back into the Body Mind Witchcraft group. So there'll be plenty of ways to see it, but we would love to have you come live. It's really great to see everybody there with us and just kind of raise energy together on the etheric plane. If you have any questions at all, we'll go ahead and leave them in the comments here, or you can message me at any time. All right, I am going to sign off for tonight, but I hope that you enjoyed this episode about the root chakra, and until next time, blessed be.